What's going on, everybody? Another morning, but not just a normal morning. Today is, I don't know, it's going to be fire because it's what the F happened. And that is what we're going to be talking about is what the F is happening. If you watch the news, you watch social media, you can see there is more stuff to digest than you can even comprehend. So today in WTF, Stephen and I are going to cover lots of juicy topics. We're not only going to cover last night, we're going to cover Zelensky, we're going to cover Ukraine, Russia, we're going to cover China, we're going to cover the markets, we're going to cover the market fallouts that we've seen in the last couple of days. I mean, everybody's paying attention, right? How those 401ks looking? You know, how's that whole approach to, oh, it's just a temporary little thing. This might not be. Let's talk tariffs. Let's talk about retaliatory tariffs, trade wars, and a lot more. We're going to hit all these right after this. All right, we're back at it. We are streaming live for WTF. We are streaming on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram. And today we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to have a ton of fun. We're going to be talking about last night. We're going to definitely talk about, your take, all of your take on what you saw, the pink side of the room specifically, and just how un-American and disgraceful that truly was. Mr. Snaggy and myself are going to be hitting that. We're going to be hitting a lot of stuff. We're also, breaking news, going to cover what China is saying, what the foreign ministry spokesperson is saying. It's war. But what does that mean? We're going to cover that as well. Stephen, what else are we going to hit today?
Yeah, man, it's just nonstop right now. I mean, I listened to Trump last night over 20 minutes. President Trump addressing, joint houses. The House and the Senate were all there, and like you said, somebody just said in the comments, can we talk about what a disgraceful display of disrespect to the entire country the Democrats put on last night? And you gotta hand it to Trump. I mean, he kind of hit it head on towards the beginning of it, and called him out and said, I've addressed you guys 5 times now, and you just sit there and you don't clap, you don't smile. I could have the answer to all the questions in the world and solve the world's problems, and you guys would just sit there and not be happy for America. And so it's just kind of shows you how divided things really are right now, how polarized things are right now, where you have a child that beat brain cancer and wants to be a police officer and is, and all this cool stuff, and not even a clap for that. So just, it's kind of disheartening to see a little bit. But with that said, I mean, a lot going on in the country. A lot of ground was talked about last night, a lot going on. I know, Chris, you've been up since 5 a.m. reading white papers to get ready for today. So we got a good show on tap, ready to rock and roll, and looking forward to getting into all of it for sure.
All right. Yeah. So a couple things, I love what Rob said. Can we talk about what a disgraceful display of disrespect the entire country, to the entire country, the Democrats put on last night? Just like Stephen said, I'm just going to, mirror that. I mean, listen, I know there's a lot of divide. I know there's a lot of hate. I know the Dems and the Republicans are very divided, and that isn't just, from Congress, but that spreads far and wide. But like what Stephen said, I mean, we're all humans, right? Like inside of us inherently is like something that makes us care, makes us cry, makes us love, and it also makes us hate. But to see that level of deep hatred can only, to me, being a God-fearing man, tell me one thing, that those people, like, there's some influence of Satan. There's just no way their hate can be that deep. And clearly they're not God's people. They're just not, because you know what? Jesus, God's son sat on, he was on the cross and he said, they know not what they do. Like, these people can't even forgive and forget. These people can't even move past it. They can't even stand and clap for even one of those things. And that, I didn't watch the whole thing. It just made me sick. And we bounced around different channels because I wanted to get a different perspective. We didn't just watch Fox News. We went to ABC. We went to every one of them were streaming it. And, yes, you could see differences, but it was the same thing. And I don't care if you're Democrat. I don't care if you're Republican. I don't care if you're black. I don't care if you're white. Like, you all had to see that, right? Even if you're stark Democrat, you had to see that. And like, there is no excuse for it. None. But with that, I want to talk a little bit about, trade wars. I mean, I've read lots of books and they've covered trade wars. I didn't truly ever think I'd see one in my lifetime, but here we are. We are literally entering a trade war. Now, I'm going to say this, and some of you are going to completely disagree. First off, well, you may not disagree with this one. Trudeau, he's just a little bitch. I mean, he's getting ousted. Why is that little bastard even making moves, making waves? Like, sit down, shut up, and just do your time until they get someone to replace your ass. Because clearly none of the Canadians want you there, but yet here you are poking the bear. First off, no disrespect to Canadians. I love my Canadian neighbors. And out of everybody on this webinar and on this show, I probably live the closest to Canada, unless you're literally Canadian. Okay, I'm in Buffalo. I could run. I could leave my driveway right now, start running, and probably by mid-afternoon be in Canada. I don't even think it would take me that long. That would be a really slow run. But you get the point. Like, I'm right there. We love the Canadians that we're friends with. We are up there all the time. But like, first and foremost, this is where you may not agree with me. Canada, in my opinion, cannot survive without the US. Period. They can't survive without our protection from a military standpoint. They can't survive without our trade. They can't survive without us importing the automobile parts, the automobiles, the oil. I mean, those are the big things. I did a YouTube video. It is not out yet, but what we did in this YouTube video is sourced all the data of what primarily Canada and Mexico, what do we import from them and how much and how important is it? And here's the thing I will tell you. Canada will not survive if they play this trade war. Mexico, no different. So in the news, I mean, right now, the little bitch, Justin Trudeau, is meeting with Donald Trump. And anyone ever read The Art of War? Stephen, you've read The Art of War, right?
Yeah, it's been a while, but yes.
You are witnessing the art of war in action right now. We'll cover that with Zelensky, and you all probably know what happened there and what's happening. But the same thing is more than likely happening here. Trump is playing the game, the whole art of war. Trump is literally laying it out right now. You are watching it firsthand. It is magnificent from a negotiation standpoint. But the one mistake I think Trump is making, and maybe he's not, maybe this is part of the art of war, and maybe I need to reread the book. Okay. But if he gives in to Trudeau and to Mexico, if he just kind of says, all right, well, we're going to kick the can again, if we're going to just extend this again, and if he does that without getting something in return, closing this trade deficit, making it make more sense for trade to exist between Canada and Mexico with the US, and meaning make more sense, meaning there isn't such a deficit. Now, I understand in Canada, Canada's small from a population standpoint. Outside of Toronto and like some of the other areas like Vancouver, like, it's pretty sparse. There's not a lot of people. So there's no way Canada will ever import the same amount that they export. It's physically impossible. But there's got to be some settling of that, right? There's got to be some common ground. The fact that they're sending their little puppy Trudeau to talk to Trump, I think, is first off a huge mistake. Okay, and it's going to be interesting to hear what comes out of that. But he's got to hold his ground. He does. And I know a lot of you are disagreeing, but here's what will happen. When you look at the trade coming from Canada to the US, it's primarily, like, number one is auto parts. And that should make no surprise. That should be no surprise to anyone. Number two, I think, was auto. Then you got lots of lumber. Oil's way up there, and some resources. And I can't remember the rest of them, but like, that was the biggest thing. So you tell me this. Trudeau puts his foot down, digs in, acts like, he's somebody when he's nobody. He's like that popular kid in school that goes home and cries at night because he knows he's just lying to everybody just to hold popularity. You've all gone to school and seen that person, right? That's Trudeau. So if nothing were to happen and these tariffs were to stay in place, here's exactly what the outcome will be. All that auto parts manufacturing, all those autos that they manufacture over there, within, mark my words, within 6 months will transfer over to the US. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It will be resourced. It'll just be like, oh, well, hey, it was fun, guys. Thanks. See ya. Literally, I can't see where that wouldn't just happen like this. Now, lumber, little different. I think we will always probably have to import, lumber and those kind of materials from Canada. But just listen, they're less densely populated. They have more lumber. Okay. It's just a fact of nature. Now, when you come down to Canada, it's a lot of the same. Or sorry, when you come down to Mexico, it's a lot of the same. We import a lot of automobiles. Why do we import a lot of automobiles from Mexico? Does anyone know? And does anyone remember? A lot of you are old enough to remember this. Stephen, you know why automobiles are so heavily imported from Mexico?
I thought it was cost, but
because U.S. car manufacturers and other car manufacturers built factories down there because labor was cheaper. That was it.
Right.
We are literally manufacturing U.S. made cars in Mexico, then importing them back in. So what do you think is going to happen if tariffs stay at 25% on Mexico? And primarily, let's just talk auto. Those freaking cars will be made in the U.S. And the people that don't have jobs, the people that need better paying jobs, because the auto industry can and does pay a pretty good wage. It's not top wage, but it's definitely middle-class wage. And my whole family, literally my entire family, except for my mother and my one uncle, all retired from this company called, well, back then it was Harrison Radiator. Now it's Delphi. They manufacture radiators. That's what they make. Okay. Now they don't nearly do what they used to, because where do you think those radiators are manufactured now? Probably in Mexico. And do you think that if there's a 25% tariff, those radiators won't just come back to the same factory? It's still there at the end of the road where I grew up. Giant factory where they used to make radiators. We'll have all sorts of new factories, all sorts of new jobs, and all sorts of new commerce that all benefits the U.S. economy and benefits you. This will all happen. It is happening now. Last night in the address, you heard of all the pledges. Now, I know none of them are solidified yet, but all the companies that are going to start building, their factories here, from everything from solar to chips to, all of it. It's coming back here. Why? Because they can't afford to do it overseas if there's tariffs. So he's got to dig in. He's got to hold the ground. This is art of war. That's all it is. I don't care whether any of you like it or not. Like, that is the best path. Now, the downside, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. And I don't care if you listen to Elon, you listen to Trump, you listen to any of the economists, they're all saying the same thing. We are definitely going to feel the pain. Prices are going to go up. Supply chains are going to be disrupted. I don't know if it's going to be as severe as the pandemic, but just if you want a reference of kind of what it could feel similar to that. There will be disruption in supply chains, especially with China. They're not willing to talk. Like, they're just like, if you want to fight, we'll fight. Exactly what they said. Let me read this to you here real quick. So Chinese embassy right now said, get to it here. All right. If war is what the U.S. wants, be it a tariff war, a trade war, or any other type of war, we're ready to fight. Now, that's not the big problem. We're ready to fight till the end. China is a little bit bigger problem than Canada, Mexico, or any of these other places we're putting tariffs on, because China definitely their economy is suffering right now. You don't hear it because, well, they're communists, so you're not going to know. The media is never going to tell you what's really going on over there. But if you dig in and you look at their numbers, their GDP is dropping. They don't have the population to continue the growth. Like, they got an aging population. They got all sorts of problems, and they're just buried in debt. Without our trade, which is a massive trade deficit of over $400 billion. That's the deficit. Without our trade, China's in deep shit. So, of course, they're saying we will fight to the end, because literally that fight could be the end. And Ray Dalio in a lot of his videos talked all about this. I never thought it was going to start or, come from a trade war, but here we are. So I'm going to shut up, but it's interesting just to watch this thing unfold. And it's interesting on my YouTube videos to watch how many people still to this moment right now don't think there's a downside to the markets. Or don't think that a market pullback or a market recession or any kind of market correction is going to affect them. They're like, we're in it for the long haul. Nobody's ever lost money investing in the markets for the long haul. But then hold on a second. Like, what if you were in the Great Depression and you invested in the stock market? I'm sorry, you never fucking recovered from that one, did you? How about in the Great Recession, if you were invested in financials? Did you ever recover from that? Nope, sorry, you never recovered. Even if you just invested in the S&P 500, which seems to be the star, the mighty almighty that everybody thinks. You hear all these stupid gurus that don't know the first thing about finance or Wall Street or anything. They're like, oh, just dollar cost average, just put money in Wall Street. Now, listen, first off, I agree. Dollar cost average. Put your money. Like, I'm not telling people not to put money into the stock market. If you love the stock market, you know, like, and understand what you're investing in, dollar cost average in. That's a really smart strategy. Keep doing it. Pick stocks or indexes that you really understand and dollar cost average in. And as you're doing that, when the markets are going down, guess what you're doing? You're buying low. But here's where people just screw the pooch on this whole thing. They think that dollar cost averaging is the only answer, but hold on. If you were dollar cost averaging over the last 10 years, what has happened? You have amassed some money and it's all in these risky assets, these stocks, or let's just call it S&P 500. And you're heavily concentrated being in these stocks because most people chase the winners. It's a concentration. You saw this before the Great Depression. You're seeing this at alarming rates right now. It's a concentration. You're really putting all your money in 10 stocks, give or take. Okay. But you're concentrated to 10 stocks. So when the market goes down, are you going to recover? Probably not. And if you do, it's going to be like the Great Depression or Great Recession, where it took you 10 years plus. So all these people that like just say, oh, I'm just going to stay in it. I'm just going to keep my money and I'm just going to invest. We had somebody that we know, Stephen, I'm not going to mention the name, that literally is out there telling his community now is a good fucking time to buy stocks. Are you an idiot? Literally, can I sit you down in my office and like look you in the eye? Are you on crack? Because like that, this is not a good time to buy stocks. There is nothing on sale in the stock market. And if you think there is a sale going on, you can't even read a chart. Anyway, I'm done, Stephen. What else do we got?
Yeah,
Wild.
I mean, on that, just the ADP private jobs report just came out and added just 77,000 jobs in February, well below the 148,000 estimate. So, we see all the data you're talking about. Now we see jobs are just not, coming around right now. I mean, it just seems like every sign is pointing to, a downturn. So it's one of those things where like you said, I mean, people that are recommending buy right now. I mean, I don't see it. I don't see it at all, Chris. To me, it's time to let's preserve. Let's see what we can do to be smart about this. Let's follow people like Warren Buffett and what they're doing.
So let me talk. What do you want to go to? You want to keep it on the markets and I can wrap this thing up on the markets real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because we got to get to Zelensky. We got to get to a lot of the stuff that happened last night. We got to talk about gold. Definitely want to talk about Bitcoin. Want to talk about all this stuff. But right here, there's a couple severe alarms going off. I follow a lot of economists. You all know that. I've been up since literally 5:15 this morning. I normally would get up and go to the gym, but this morning I got up and all I've been doing is reading white paper after white paper. I'm literally exhausted and all that stuff is in my head. I have it, but it's just hard to articulate it all back out. Some of it is very complicated. Some of it is a lot of charts, but there are some very severe warnings going off right now. Dire warnings. Like literally, I would be very remiss to think that we wouldn't be in a severe, like just fallout in the markets by July. Now, here's one thing, like last night or yesterday, I did a webinar, and this is interesting. There was an investment banker on there, and I know the man, and I respect the man tremendously. And he said there is no systemic risk in the markets. Now, you'd have to look up systemic risk, but basically just essentially what he was saying to the group in relation to, we were talking about how it's really hard to get refis. It's really hard to get money. It's a lot of real estate investors are suffering huge right now. A lot of syndications are suffering huge right now, not because they have systemic risk or anything's wrong with what they did or what they bought, just simply because there's no liquidity right now. They cannot refinance these properties. They go hard money or private money to buy the properties, and then they're just having a hard time finding access for that secondary DSCR or whatever you want to call it lending. That is literally seizing right now. Now, I don't think it's going to stay seized. I just think there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of movement in the bond yields in the bond market. So I think there's just like this period of time where everybody's just like, kind of like what I'm saying. Let's just sit in the back. Let's just watch the show. Why get in the show? Why get in there? Like, I don't want to get in the mosh pit. Like, let's just sit back and watch these idiots pound the shit out of each other and just kind of check it all out and wait to see, where do you think we should enter this thing? That's kind of what banks are doing right now. So he's absolutely right. There's no systemic risk, but that does not mean, like, you can hang on that. You could hang on that and be like, oh, whew, glad we're not going back into the Great Recession, and what happened there, because you had lots of systemic risk. We're not, but you have other types of risk in the market. You have a lot of the same risks we had during the dot-com crash. You have a lot of the same risks we had in, the roaring 20s right up to the 1929 start of the Great Depression. So this right here is one of them. And I can show this to you. I can read this to you. I don't know if you'll fully understand it, but what we're talking about is you're showing signs of cracking with an ever escalating stimulus. So what they're showing here is the Fed Atlanta GDP model. Now, I have my own opinion on this, but this is freaking alarming. Stephen, have you seen this one?
No.
The GDP. So what this is doing is it's looking at the GDP, and we're looking at it straight up to the current times. Now, I don't know if you can see this. I tried circling it. This X marks where we're at now. Do you see that? That is not me drawing a line straight down, folks. That is our GDP dropping. Okay. And what other period of time were we mimicking that? Right over here. And shall I read what time that was? That was May of 2022. Does anyone remember what happened in May of 2022 or what was going on? Yeah, the shutdown, right? Yeah. So that was like the heat of that second wave of the pandemic when we were pretty much shut down. So we literally right now, but here's the other thing. It's plunged literally we're in March now. It's plunged in 3 months. Okay. It's like a straight line down 2.8%. That is a tremendous amount. So when you look at that, there's a couple ways to articulate this data, because some of you are like, well, what does that mean? Well, I think what this is showing you, and the reason you had such a big drop in GDP, is companies, in light of the tariffs and getting ready for the tariffs, have literally just been piling up on goods that they would buy or supplies that they would buy from China, Canada, Mexico, all these. I don't know how, because I mean, we've really never seen something like this, not even during the pandemic. It didn't go down like this. So that's my only thing. And I've read a couple other little tidbits on that it's just, companies here in the US just gobbling up stuff from other countries, like before these tariffs go in place. Now that could be it, and if that isn't it, if I'm wrong, hang on. That's all I could say. You just have to hang on, because like this economist said, we've never seen a scenario like this before, not even close. So then he says, now is the time to get defensive. Now is the time to buy gold, possibly silver. I think silver's a better value right now, but gold never gets old. I would also say, somebody asked me the other day, should I sell my gold? Stephen, I don't know what your take is on this. You're more of a gold person than me, but I'm just the kind of person that I understand cycles. And going into this is the cycle where you pretty much would be pretty close to the top of gold. Like, do you think now if somebody was sitting on a ton of gold, do you think this would be a time to sell some of that gold off, or would you hold it? What would you do?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question. I mean, my opinion, precious metals, you just buy them and hold them till you die, till you pass them down, till you need to use them as currency because the world goes into a zombie apocalypse, whatever the reason might be. I mean, it's one reason I kind of like silver a little bit more, because silver is a little bit more nimble and lower,
a lot cheaper right now.
Yeah, a lot cheaper, obviously. But gold's one of those things, in my opinion, you just kind of buy and you hold on to. I mean, unless you really need the cash, but at that point, what are you just trading it for cash? And cash is going to drop. I mean, so it's like, unless you're going to use that and then put it into something else. To me, though, just gold's that little small percent of your portfolio you just constantly buy, you kind of forget about, and you keep it forever. But that's my opinion on it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I guess maybe I'm just more of a swing trader, and I love to buy low and sell high. So if I owned a bunch of gold, I would definitely sell off a chunk of it. I certainly would at these prices, and I would continue to sell as gold went up, and then I would continue to buy I would continue to dollar cost average into it, because as I'm selling, I'm getting prime price. Now, am I buying a little bit at the same price or close to the same price? Yeah, maybe even higher, but I'm dollar cost averaging in. And then when gold goes down, like it recently just took a little tumble, but it's recovering a little bit, then, you know, you're buying it lower. So it's just strategy. I know it takes time. I know a lot of people don't have time to do that stuff, but just talking about it. But listen, like 10 to 30-year treasury bonds, I don't know how long I've been talking about these things, and a lot of people were doubting me on these things, but I'm telling you, every one of you, if you still are holding those long-term treasuries, your day is coming soon. I would say by next year, I think we're going to be laughing. I mean, when I look at my position, you know, I've been looking at it, like I've gone up tremendous in you know, so I know some folks held it, you know, they bought it maybe in the, you know, in the 100 range, 110, somewhere around there. And it fell down to like 80. They were freaking out. You know, we're up in the 90s now, you know, and I'm talking about ETF called TLT, not giving you investment, you know, recommendations, but that is the safe haven. I've heard it now from every single economist out there. And this economist here is very pro treasuries, but this economist right here is very pro gold. And you never hear him talking about long treasuries. They're talking about long treasuries. Ray Dalio is talking about long treasuries. Warren Buffett owns a lot of long treasuries. So you just follow the big money. But the stupid money, guess where that's going? Into the market. The stupid money is the money when somebody says, oh, there's buying opportunities in the markets right now. That's stupid money. So do you want to be smart money or do you want to be stupid money? I think is the question of the day. So let's move on to another topic. That's pretty much all I've got to kind of, well, I got a lot more about the markets, but just get defensive. That's all I'm trying to say. What else we got, Stephen?
All right, keep rolling. My mouse just froze, so let me switch over to a different mouse.
Your mouse froze? All right, well, let's keep going. Let me just give you this. This is some interesting stuff. This is another white paper talking about Fort Knox. You know, Elon and Musk are going to, or sorry, Elon and Trump are going to go audit the Fort Knox. You know, there's a lot of speculation of saying there's no gold at Fort Knox. I completely disagree. I think we have all the gold we say we have. But here's the interesting thing that I just learned. I did not know this. And Stephen, I don't know if you did. The gold that we have is valued based on numbers that were, all the gold we have is valued at $42.22 an ounce. Think about that. You all know where it's trading now. I think like 2,900 or something like that. So when you really look at that and you look at, you know, like the fact that it's priced there, and this is all, you know, what happened when President Nixon took us off the gold standard in 71, but that's 8,133 metric tons of gold bullion. Okay. Located in 3 different places: Fort Knox, West Point, Denver Mint. That's where the U.S.'s gold is. And all you ever hear when you see the news, you hear how much it's worth: $771 billion. But what you don't know is $771 billion is what it's worth at $42.22. Let's just say we went back and we had that revalued, and we had it valued at, like, mark up the value, like bring the market value of the gold up to current market value. Do you realize that would add $760 billion to the Treasury's general account? And that would mean that would be no new debt. But the problem with that is if it falls, you got an issue. So, you know, I don't know if they're going to do that. It's just one of those things. But there was a couple of things in that have been said about that, you know, different people saying, well, hey, here's different things that you could do. You could, you know, mark the gold up and then use the money to buy foreign government bonds to produce higher yields. I think that's a terrible job. And so does this economist. You could mark the gold up and then you could use that and go out and just try to combat inflation with that. So let's see, gone up 80%. Cumulative inflation's been 10. You know, basically there's different ways to monetize the gold we have, but they all have negative aspects to it. So maybe they'll just leave it valued where it is and just tell everybody, hey, we have this much, and people can figure out what they want to do with that. All right. Your mouse working now?
Yep. I'm back.
All right. I'm done talking about gold. I'm all golded out. So let's get on to another topic. Where do you want to go? You want to go Zelensky? What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, we can, you know, if you kind of look at Trump's speech last night, I mean, he hit on a little bit of all of it. I mean, you know, talk about Ukraine. You know, there's a lot of news coming out this weekend. Vladimir Putin. Zelensky was at the White House, actually went to visit the White House. So there's a whole backstory here. So last week there was negotiations going on with the U.S. and Ukraine to sign what's called a rare earth minerals deal, which basically is the US's way of monetizing and trying to get back some of the money we've given to Ukraine for the war by saying, hey, you guys are going to give us rights to be able to, basically access and sell and use these rare earth minerals. So there was a whole deal worked out, and Zelensky was going to sign it, but kept saying, hey, I want to come to the White House and sign it in front of everybody. And now there's all the news coming out this week that Zelensky met with the Democrat leaders prior to the meeting with Trump, and they encouraged him and basically told him to blow the deal up, to kind of use that Trump White House appearance with the media. It was all televised. It was on the news. Use that as a way to kind of appeal to the U.S. to stay in the war and keep funding it and everything else. So, they got there, and it was about an hour-long interview. I watched the whole thing because it was pretty fascinating, and it's unprecedented. I don't think anything like that has ever occurred in the history of the country. But nonetheless, so Zelensky was at the White House, and Trump and J.D. Vance were there. The Vice President J.D. Vance were there, and they were talking to Zelensky about, Ukraine and the war. And, Zelensky just kept saying, kind of talking at them and talking down and not being appreciative. And JD and Trump were just basically like, listen, man, we hold the keys to your country. Like, without us, you guys are going to be destroyed. And Zelensky just got very argumentative, and it ended with basically them throwing him out of the White House because they were supposed to have a press conference afterwards, which got canceled. And you saw Zelensky leaving the White House and showed up in Europe the next day.
Begging them for money. What they give him, like $3 billion? Was that what they gave him? Like a mere $3 billion bucks?
Yeah, whatever it is.
They're broke. They're broke over there.
And so last night at the congressional address, kind of basically last night was a State of the Union, but they called it a congressional address. And last night, Trump was saying, hey, actually Zelensky's now signed the rare earth mineral deal. All's good. But then this morning, coming out of the news, the CIA, I believe, director came out and said they are going to stop sharing intelligence with Ukraine that Ukraine was using to attack Russia. So kind of stopping that. And Trump has been talking a lot about peace, and it seems like a lot of people want this war to keep going on. And so you kind of have this weird battle, and it also just really flips everything upside down. I mean, Chris, I've said this many times. I grew up the majority of my life, a Democrat, anti-war, and believing in personal freedoms. It just seems like everything's backwards right now, where all of a sudden the Democrat Party are the ones that are really trying to push this war continuing and not stopping.
Yeah, didn't somebody say the war should continue for another 5 years? Who was that? The pink dress?
Yeah, the Democratic.
What's her name?
Are coming out.
Liz. What's her name? Liz. Is it Liz that said that? Anyway, he called her out. But
okay, there you go. So Brandon said that he actually said they received a letter saying he wants to come back and work towards peace and will sign the deal. So
here, let me read that. I'll give you I got that article right here. Matter of fact, so this is pretty interesting. You want to talk about the art of war and how this works? I mean, who's playing who here? So Zelensky throws a fit, refuses to sign mineral deals. Saturday, Sunday, Zelensky runs off to London to beg for money from Europe. They give him a minuscule amount of funds and tell him to go beg Trump for forgiveness. Monday, Trump says that if Zelensky does not come to the table ready for peace, then he will not be around very long. Hours later, Trump cuts off all weapon sales, aid, funding, stockpiles, etc., until Zelensky is committed to a ceasefire and peace deal, like you were talking about, Stephen. Today, Zelensky, and this isn't today. This is a few days old. So today, Zelensky is ready to commit to a peace deal. First thing this morning, you just witnessed the art of the deal play out in real time, which is Trump's book. Trump is holding all the cards and forced Zelensky to submit. Zelensky was trying to play games and keep the war. But was it Zelensky playing games or the Dems? Like, that's interference, if you ask me. Like, you got to call a penalty. Like, throw the freaking the flag there. I don't know. To me, I guess I don't know the difference between the interference and treason, but gosh, it's a fine line there. Play games, keep this war going. Trump dropped the hammer on him. Trump essentially told Zelensky, you either work with me on stopping this war or we let Putin kill you. And what they've done is, I feel like the Dems have kind of used that to say, oh, you're getting in bed with Putin again. And, this whole Russian collusion crap just seems to be popping back up. But you know what? Listen, like, I think I've seen enough stuff about eggs and the price of eggs. It's all Trump's fault. But you know what? For the first time, this is interesting, Stephen. And I think most of you would agree, like, the Dems are throwing all this stuff out, playing all this bullshit, doing all this. I mean, you saw the little signs last night, like Elon steals and false. And it's just, I don't think people are buying it.
Right.
Anymore. I just don't think that is the common consensus. And you know that because they did a poll, and you know, there was a poll done. I don't have the numbers, but like, it was like 60+% or maybe even 70+% said that they agreed with everything Trump said there. And then there was another poll done about how the Dems reacted. It was heavily like frowned upon. And again, I don't have those numbers in front of me.
Well, I mean, you listen to the whole speech. I mean, it's all stuff that's good for the country in America. I mean, I know there's some stuff that's, you know, I guess if you believe that men should be able to compete against women in sports, I mean, that's a odd belief in my opinion. But if you believe that, that's fine. But you know, to make that a rule across America, I think it's better for America that, like, we've had our entire lifetimes where men compete against men, women compete against women, you know, in the appropriate sports. Like, these controversial things that are, you know, everybody's always saying are so divisive and controversial. I don't think they're as controversial as the news tries to portray them as. You know what I mean, Chris? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like it's a very small percentage of people that make all this noise, but the majority of Americans, I think, are in agreement with most everything that Trump said last night. And yeah, Michael Vogel said the woman you were talking about was Liz Warren. And actually, it was kind of funny last night. Trump actually called her Pocahontas from stage, which was pretty wild. I mean, he had some zingers last night. I was telling my wife, I was like, I really need to start writing stuff down, because I was like doing little like impersonations and quotes like throughout it. And it was, we were dying laughing. Like, he's so funny. And I forget him right now. So I'll start writing that stuff down in the future. But you know, Trump is one of the most it's what makes him so great, right? Is he's so entertaining, and he finds a way to get these complex topics. I mean, to say the guy's in cognitive decline is wild, because an hour and 40 minutes last night, hour 45 minutes, he went nonstop, and you could tell he's not just reading off a teleprompter, because you could tell when he's reading off it, but you can tell when he makes little comments just to himself. Like, he knows everything that's going on, and he hit a large range of topics. And remember, Chris, he's only been president for about 4 weeks now, like about a month and a half. I mean, and look how much he's done and he's doing.
I can't even keep up with it.
In a month and a half. Nobody can keep up with it. I mean, you even listen to like the commentators and some of the news people, and they're like, listen, I go to take like a couple-day break or spend some time with my family, and I can't, because there's stuff coming out like every hour of every day, 7 days a week. And it's fascinating, man. And you start, you know, looking, you know, he talked about like the assassination attempt, and, you know, they're saying they're going to release all the data on who that kid was that took, you know, shot his ear off. You know, to have a young person this day and age with zero social media, you know, history at all. Like, that's what they're saying. The guy had zero social media. His home was completely scrubbed. There was no silverware. There was no fingerprints. Like, there's all the cell phone data that was showing that he was visiting all these FBI offices and a lot of connections with different agencies. And the whole story is just very bizarre. So, you know, there's more to that story. They're saying they're going to try and get to the bottom of and release it all. I mean, just, there's so much going on right now. It's wild.
All right. So now I got to ask a real question. And also, real quick, there was one comment that came in from Instagram that I find hilarious. C_C_Leshy said, Americans are all a bunch of airheads. I'll take that. Sure. We sure are. So what are Canadians? Like, what do we call them? Like, what do we call everybody else? If we're the airheads, what we just name call everybody else? But I thought that was funny. But so now this is the probably the most important question I'm going to ask today. I got to think. So I need all of you to participate, because I need to know what your thoughts are. Zelensky, JD Vance, fist fight. Who wins? Who wins that fight? Zelensky or JD Vance? That'd be a good fight, I got to say. I
don't see JD
believe That would be a badass fight. So I'm just going to pause.
I'd rather see Elon. How about Elon?
No, dude, JD Vance. No, because Elon wouldn't stand. I'm sorry. Elon doesn't stand a chance against fucking Zelensky.
All right. Well, let Elon stick to
Vance might
Elon's
have a shot against Zelensky. Now, Zelensky's an actor, right? So, like, if you really like look at his whole history of like how he came to power, it's pretty interesting. But it doesn't matter any of that. Who wins that fight, Vance or Zelensky? There's going to be bloodshed. It's literally going to be like watching an old boxing match where they literally really fought. Like, everybody's saying JD.
JD's got the size.
I know he's ex-military, but like Zelensky's a short, like it's always a short little guy that you always got to watch out for the little guy. I don't know, folks. I'm not knowing who's going to win that one. I almost would say Zelensky because he's backed into a corner. I think Zelensky wins that fist fight.
I'm going with that.
But it'd be a good fight, right? So with that, I just wanted to break the, cut through the shit we were talking about and mention one other thing. So today, we've got something really freaking awesome for all of you. I know this is awesome, what the F, but this afternoon at 1 p.m., we are kicking off March Money Madness, which is 4 weeks. Every Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 4 weeks of March Money Madness. We've got an awesome array of topics. So every week we've got topics. You can all check it out. We'll put it in the comments. Stephen will put it in there. If you want to register, all you do is you go to chrisnaugle.com, okay, /MMM. Super easy. March Money Madness. So we're playing off of the basketball Money Madness or basketball madness, March Madness and all that. But I thought it was really fun because March Money Madness. And what we're going to do is we're going to start today, just like Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player of all time, would start practice. And we're going to go to the fundamentals, the basic footwork, the basics of what you need to be doing with your money. And then we're going to move through and we're going to get into how to control money. We're going to get into how to make money twice on your same dollar. So $1 makes money twice for you. We're going to show you how to tap into uninterrupted compounding interest. And we're going to show you not just how to, but why and how. We're going to cover all of that today. And guess here's the best part. Totally free. Like all you do is you go to chrisnaugle.com /MMM and register for my spot and show up at 1 o'clock. Now, here's the bad news. This is being recorded, but it will not be posted on YouTube like you're used to with our wealth webinars. These are going to be edited down, turned into a training regiment that will only exist in MSTV, Money School TV. And if any of you want to know what Money School TV is, you definitely need to check that out. And Money School TV you can find by going to moneyschool.tv. The rest you'll find out this afternoon at 1 p.m. Eastern for the first ever March Money Madness. So join us by going on that. So I want to give a little plug there. It's going to be so much fun. I am pumped. All right, so let's move on, Stephen. Anything you want to say about March Money Madness? Because this was largely your idea.
No, I'm looking forward to it, man. It's going to be really, really good. We basically took our 3-day Money School Essentials training and kind of consolidated it just a little bit to fit into the mold of a 4-week, 90-minute series. But the good news is we're doing it for free. It's over the next 4 weeks. It starts today at 1 p.m. Eastern, and it's going to be awesome. The other thing I will mention real fast, Chris, is if you are not following Chris or myself either on Facebook or Instagram, go over at the Chris Naugle on all the different social medias, but do so because Chris has been going live every evening at 8 p.m. Eastern. And the lives are really cool, man. You're talking about some really neat stuff, Chris. You're sharing a little bit about your personal life at home with Vivi running around. And so if you haven't caught that yet, definitely follow on Facebook and Instagram, and he goes live every night at 8 p.m. and you can see that pop up. And I think that's been really cool. So make sure you do that as well.
And I'm going to continue. We're having fun with it. I love it when Vivi comes down. She chokes the shit out of me, jumps on my shoulders, like just literally kicks the living crap out of me while I'm trying to teach things. So people are really loving it. We're going to keep rolling it. It's like the one place where I get to get personal. I get to really go into the things that really happen that I never get to talk about, because we always have an agenda. But I want to head over here. Instagram had a good comment. So Insured by May said, what have you been reading in the white papers regarding the real estate market for single family homes? Would you sell or hold? All right. So First off, that's a very good question. So thank you for asking that. But it is a very mixed question. So I read a lot of white papers from many different economists, and they all sort of have a different opinion. If I go to one of the economists I read, he's saying that you're going to see a 40 to 60% fallout in real estate. Okay. I mean, if there's no systemic risk, there is a big bubble in real estate prices. So that's one. I got another economist who basically says you'll see a minor correction in pricing, minor, maybe 10%. Okay. So a 10% correction, which really would be not too big of a deal. And then you got another economist, which I think would kind of be the most level of the two, is saying you're definitely going to see a price drop in single family and all real estate. I mean, you're going to see a bigger price. So if you really talk about like where the price drop's going to be in real estate, it's going to be in commercial. That's clearly where it's going to be. I mean, you're definitely going to see the market flooded with properties. I mean, hell, if the government, if Trump decides to sell off all those IRS buildings, that are vacant, or all the federal buildings that are built that are vacant, it's going to flood the market. I mean, there's a lot of vacant buildings right now because people just don't go back to work. Like during the pandemic, they stayed home and then they just haven't come back. So you got a major issue, but we haven't heard much about that issue. And that issue will only be really prevalent. And I think this is the way to sum it up based on all of what I've read. The way to sum it up is it really is going to depend largely on what the Fed does with interest rates. The Fed's in a really tough place right now. I wouldn't want to be, in the Fed right now because like they're in a really tough place. Like they've been trying to soft land this thing, and playing this delicate balance of tightening and now easing. And, they've paused, and they paused right when many say they should have cut. But they don't want to, they're so focused on inflation, which is important, but now you got tariffs. So when these tariffs go in place, they are absolutely going to increase, inflation. It's an inflationary thing. So if the Fed holds and doesn't cut into these inflations or these tariffs, if the tariffs stay in force, then you're going to have a real problem, and you're going to have just a freeze up because you really got the two working against one another. So I don't really know. I think, more to come on that would be the best thing. But if you're talking and you got properties and they're valued really high and you don't want them because you're sick of dealing with tenants, you're sick of dealing with toilets and termites and all the crap that comes along with real estate, then yeah, now would be the time to sell. But there is never a bad time to buy real estate. There is just a bad strategy to apply to your real estate purchase, if that makes sense. So that's what I would say about that. But it is a very good question. I don't get asked that question enough. I'm still lending money. So therefore I clearly am not super concerned about a huge price fallout, but I am lending short term. I'm not lending long right now. Okay. I'm trying to keep my lending to right around 6 months, no more than 12 months. And I'm even very iffy about 12 months. And I'm also not lending, the same LTV I was. I've reduced it. So I'm making borrowers put skin in the game, money in the game, or making borrowers buy ridiculously cheap as to what the current values are. So my underwriting guidelines have definitely stiffened up a little bit because I'm just bracing for what that could mean. All right. So let's see.
Just on that real fast too. I mean, if you start looking at data, I was just looking at Florida this week, and Florida's an odd market because there's, areas of Florida that are very, very, very desirable. And there's areas of Florida that people kind of buy in because they can't afford the very desirable areas. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so it kind of creates a pretty interesting demand in the market. And so this data doesn't necessarily apply to all areas of Florida, but on average in Florida right now, listings just last month are up 7.3% and are up 33% year over year. And we haven't really seen levels of supply in Florida at these levels since 2008 and 9 when we saw the big crash. So we're starting to approach some of those levels where things are not selling. Now the market is very high, and so we're going to see some of that. But if we start comparing things to 2008, that's when, to me, it starts getting a little bit scary.
I agree. All right, let's see. I got one other thing too here I wanted to hit, and then I want to wrap today with some just some recaps of some of the interesting things that were said last night. I kind of got a summary of that was sent over. But here's one thing that is very interesting, and this is right in line with everything we've been talking about. Like when you look at the world, let's just take our focus off of the U.S. and you look at the world, and you look at all the other countries or empires or whatever you want to call them. Like the biggest problematic ones right now, and you're not going to know this, are China. China is literally not doing well. Let's just put it that way. They're having some serious internal struggles, but again, because they're communist, you won't hear about it, but just know like that's a problem. But outside of them, you got some major issues going on with the EU. And the EU, Europe, sorry, I should have prefaced that. Europe has a lot of issues happening right now and a lot of things that I truly couldn't begin. And I'm trying to find it. I have it right here. Truly don't know how they're going to come out of this mess. I mean, you've been hearing about it, but right, it's not the US, so it's not front and center in the news. But the one thing that, oh, here we go. I got it. So the EU will cave next is the name of this article. So after China, the EU, yes, the EU is Russia's largest importer. So what they're talking about is importing, okay? Importer of fossil fuels. So the EU has paid Russia more for fossil fuels than they gave Ukraine in aid. And they got the numbers here of how much oil China imports. And then they show how much oil EU imports, but it's not just oil, it's oil and natural gas. So if you combine the oil and natural gas that Europe or the EU uses, it's massive. They're in a very weird predicament right now. With some of the stuff that Trump's doing, basically saying he's going to pull out of NATO. I mean, there's a lot of things, and none of it's happened yet. It's all the art of war. Or the art of the deal. I guess you could almost just say it's the art of the deal more than the art of war. But, with all these things, like, it's hard to know like what Trump is using as a bargaining tool, a negotiation tool versus what he's actually going to do. But if he pulls out of NATO and then the EU is left to pretty much stand on their own, they're screwed big time. Like Europe's got a major issue on their hands. The only one that does not have an issue right now, which is kind of bizarre, is India. India's got a great population. Matter of fact, they're way overpopulated. It's, there's certain areas, where there's just thriving business. There's this one area, I'm trying to think of the name of it. I probably wouldn't pronounce it right anyway, where there's like 1 million people packed into a square mile, and it's all business. And they're all like making different things, manufacturing different things, and it's thriving, even though it's just filthy, like beyond filth. It's thriving. So more to come on India, but like, let's say somebody was saying, all right, well, what do I invest in? I would heavily look at India. Like if you want to invest in an up and comer and you want to get in early, like I wouldn't say you're getting in early, but you want to get in, before a lot of other time people do. Like same thing as what happened with China, same thing that happened to Japan, but they ran their course and they made some major mistakes in population. China screwed the pooch on that one when they said, hey, you can only have one kid. Well, I don't know who or why they decided that was a good idea, but India did not. India is just like, pop the kids out, man. Hey, like, maybe we'll take the condoms and the birth control away from you guys and we'll see what just happens. Like they got a great population going on over there. They got really hardworking people over there that are willing to literally just go out and do anything. It's a lot like what probably the US was way back in the day. It's a lot like what China was many moons ago or decades ago, and it's a lot like what Europe probably must have been one day. But these countries evolve, and they go from third world to second world to first world, and then they become superpowers, and all of a sudden all that changes. But India is definitely one to keep your eye on because they've got number one resources. They've got they got a lot of problems in their government, but not as bad as other places. They got resources, but they've got the population and they've got the education. They're working on the education. It's not quite there. It's not what Japan's the best education system, I think, arguably in the world. But that's that. So, Stephen, anything you have to say on any of that, or do you want to add anything else to this?
No, I mean, no. You're good.
All right.
Keep rolling.
The other thing I want to hit on, and this comes, I've talked about this before, so this is just a recap, but it's just kind of becoming more prevalent. And this is the end of globalism. I talk about geopolitics. I talk about that book, The End of the World is Just the Beginning. We're literally seeing it. Literally, you're seeing it front and center with these trade wars. Like, is this the end of globalism? And what does that mean? I mean, literally, everything I've known growing up for the most part has been globalism. It's since World War II. I mean, it's been a one world trade, right? Like everybody's doing business with everybody else. That's just how we do it. But it looks as though like that went it was helping everybody else, but it wasn't helping the United States. And now you just have this major shift. I think the U.S. economy is big enough to support itself, but I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this. I really don't. He warns NATO is going to be obsolete, suggesting Europe should strengthen its defenses and potentially find a NATO replacement within months. Holy shit is all I can say about that. Like, I never thought I'd see the day. I thought we were buds with Canada. I thought we were buds with Europe. Like, and now all of a sudden he's just shaking shit up. And I'm sure there's good reason for it. Listen, it's kind of be like, if you're a kid in school and your buddy just every day just degrades you, picks on you, pushes you around, punches you in front of everybody just to make you kind of just seem a little, eventually that other kid that's been being punished, they're going to retaliate. And I almost feel like that's what you're seeing here is just the U.S. kind of retaliating, maybe a bit much, maybe not, but I don't know where this goes. I mean, I don't know a world without globalism. And I don't think any of you do either. So just, again, these are all just these things that feed into this. And the U.S. economy is just the biggest bubble it's ever been. I mean, it's an artificial bubble that has been built because the Fed has just been completely just pumping money into the system. That's why we haven't had a recession. That's why we haven't had these big corrections. That's why we're in a bubble. The longer you keep blowing it up, hey, it's just going to keep going until eventually it pops. And are we about to witness the pop? I don't know. And I don't want to see it, but we're going to. And I like to think I'm prepared, but I'm not, just like you're not. We're all going to be in it together, but there's going to be some people that are just going to be completely devastated and wiped out. And those are the people I was talking about earlier. That, I'm going to just continually call them the stupid money, and they're just going to be destroyed.
Yeah, coming in from YouTube, I mean, One Planet Nova had an interesting take. They said among banks of any size, 1,871 of them have a total CRE exposure, which is commercial real estate, exposure greater than 300%. 1,100 have greater exposure than 400%, 551 have greater exposure than 500%, and 243 have exposure greater than 600%.
But there's no systemic risk, right?
If that doesn't tell you where we're at, you're in trouble.
And that doesn't tell you what's going to happen to real estate. I don't know what does.
And then they said, well, if what I posted above doesn't want you to start your own bank, I don't know what will.
And we're going to be covering that at 1 o'clock. Sure, like, I'm going to say this, like, all the credit goes to R. Nelson Nash, the late R. Nelson Nash, because he brought this to all of us. But there probably, arguably, has never been a better time in history where what we teach, becoming your own bank, being in control of your money, owning your financial future, is more important than right now. So when I hear people saying, I had one guy on a YouTube comment say, oh, nobody's an honest banker. I'm like, you know what? You're wrong. I commented back. I said, well, I am. I treat my money the same way I treat the traditional banks. He's talking about repaying the policies. And his comment back is, yeah, well, your customers. I said, well, you know who our customers are not? People like you, people that want to steal from their bank, people that think it's smart to not repay themselves. If they don't treat their banking system like they would treat anyone else's bank, then they're never going to be a client of ours because I don't ever want them. Period. I've said this to Steve and I've said this to our team. It's important to understand who your client is, but it's far more important to understand who your client is not. Because if you understand who your client is not, you absolutely know who your client is. I'm going to wrap this with these. These are some choice quotes that were chosen. And this is in one of those white papers I read, and I thought it was awesome. And many of these you'll know, some of these may be missed from last night. So here we go. Over 130,000 people, according to Social Security databases, are aged over 160 years old. This is the best part. We have a healthier country than we thought, Bobby, talking to, our hilarious RFK. Could you believe that? How many healthy people we have? I've never met anybody 160 years old. Hell, there's people that are over 300 years old. Did you realize that?
Can we just think about the impact of a Kennedy being a
staunch Democrat.
I mean, yes. I mean, the Kennedy family, being a big part of the Republican Party. It's unbelievable.
All right. Let's keep going because these just get better. They get way better. All right. Right here. The media and our friends in the Democratic Party, we needed new legislation to secure the border, but it turned out that all we really needed was a new president. Oof. Slap in the face. Pocahontas, eat your heart out. I was saved by God to make America great again. I believe that. Like, that is a powerful statement. Now, maybe he's the only one that believes that. Maybe a lot of you believe that. My mother certainly believes that. Larissa 100, my wife, certainly believes that. But the fact that that's what he believes said that he's rooted in the right place. Okay, and that's the only takeaway I'd give with that. We have ended the tyranny of so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion policies all across the entire federal government, and indeed the private sector and our military. And then this one's really funny. On Greenland, I think we're going to get it. One way or another, we're going to get it. Like, how many times in your lives, when you're working on yourself and you're working on your mindset and you're working on just, being better, have you been told to say, I am? Not I will, not I might, I am. And everything in your life, I want you to really think about this, that you have said, I am. You have believed, I am. You have repeated, I am. And I do this all the time. I am going to sell Private Money Club for $350 million. I repeat I ams all the time. And how many of those things in your life that you have been firm with, that you have believed in, and you have, continually told yourself and others, it's good to put it in the universe, I am blank. How many times has it not happened? Probably none. And if it hasn't happened, it just hasn't happened yet. So with that kind of a statement, one way or the other, he could say, I am going to get it. But he said, we, the people, are going to get it. And I thought that was very powerful. Affirmations. There you go. Navigate your ventures. Affirmations are so powerful. So as we wrap this episode of WTF, it's amazing how fast this time. Preface again, we are rocking with March Money Madness starting this afternoon at 1:00. And then we roll right into Ask Me Anything Happy Hour, which is streamed on this exact same platform. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. Make sure you click that little bell so you get notified when we go live. But really make sure you all get registered for today's March Money Madness. chrisnaugle.com/MMM. And I can't wait to see a whole bunch of you out in Dallas. Shauna just dropped it in there. Many of you know about it. Many of you already have your tickets. Some of you do not. We are going to be out in Dallas, Texas for the PMC Money Tank, one of our best events we do. Rocks the house. It's such a great event, but you should see the speaker lineup and the people we have coming. For the first time, we've got an entire panel of speakers there to talk about tax strategies and different things you can do to save on taxes. We've never done that before, but we are doing it, and we're doing it again in May 8th and 9th. And if you want to come out for the VIP, you get an extra night, a cocktail hour, and we're going out to Medieval Times, day number 2. That's only available for VIP. So make sure you grab your tickets. Stephen, how much longer do we have on the discounts?
It's like 7 days, maybe.
So there's 7 days left. If you want to come to PMC Money Tank, and here we go. Like Trump, I said, I hope he's not bluffing. I am not bluffing. Look me in the eye. Okay. I am not bluffing. In 7 days or whatever the timer is, you will not ever be able to get this discount again. So unless you take advantage of it in the next 7 days, or might as well just do it right now, no better time than the now, get it done, you will not get a discount. So the discount codes are Early Bird 1. If you're general admission, you save $300 off the ticket, and Early Bird 2, the number 2 for VIP, where you get $600 off. Please try not to buy the VIP tickets with $600 off, because I'm losing money on every one of those. If you can just kindly wait till after the 7th day and just pay full price for the VIP tickets, I'd very much appreciate that. But gobble up those general admission tickets, $300 off, Early Bird 1, Early Bird 2, and you just go to privatemoneyclub.com/money tank. We got it up.
We actually legitimately are almost out of VIP too, so it's going to be
good.
But
did we sell them all with this stupid discount that you guys came up with without doing the math?
Maybe. We're learning. Right. We're learning, Chris. We're learning.
Oh, well, yeah, learning how to lose money. All right. Well, hey, listen, nothing different than the prior administration in the U.S. But with that, we're going to take that and we're going to call that quits for today's.
So we never even got to the gold cards. We never got to the new gold dome. That's
how many times did I ask you if you got something you want to interject with?
So much to get to. An hour is not long enough. Anyways, good show today. That was fun.
All right. Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll see you this afternoon. With that, we'll see you sometime.